Thirdly, he speaks about looking forward, running the race with perseverance, this race that's been marked out for us. I mean, I love those words, marked out for us. I often find myself thinking about that. And while we're in a team together and while we're all called to similar things, ultimately my understanding is we all called to run our own race. And I think this is where we get in troubles, when we're trying to run someone else's race or try and focus on what they're doing rather than what we're doing. And that's where we see many leaders trip up and fall. They're so focused on their people or focused on other pastors, or they lose their way. Stick to your race. Stick to my race. We each have our own race to run. I need you to run your race, and you need me to run my race. And I've seen guys finish well recently, and it's because they've run their race and they're continuing to the next thing. And their breakthrough is our breakthrough, but their falling down would be our falling down. And so, run your race, my dear friend. This challenges us to remember you can't run in my lane, and I can't run in your lane. I'm convinced, as I said earlier, this is the biggest cause, the biggest hindrance to the cause of Christ, by those who refuse to run in their own lane. And they're too busy hindering everyone else around them. Run in your race. We're not competing against each other. We're on the same team, but we're running our race. My job is not to outrun anyone else or to outrun you. My job is to run for Jesus, the race that He's planned for me, the best of my ability. Our course, I believe, has been individually designed, and while it interconnects and while we're connected together and we're stronger together, and those are truths, we also called for this individual race. It's up to us to walk with Him and make sure we stick into His plan. The race you are running, I believe, has been prepared just for you. I go back to David's Psalm 16 when he thanks the Lord for this incredible inheritance he's been given. And Psalm 16 verse 5, he says, Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You have made my lot secure. Verse 6, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. So what are some of the things that are hindering this race in looking forward? Well, what about the future? Obviously, we talk a lot about that. But the future, what we believe about our future, being prophetic, will determine how we live and lead in the present. And we've said this many times. Today's complacency is tomorrow's captivity. In other words, the generations coming after us who are going to live with the consequences of what we're doing today, friends. And that's not a thing to feel bad for. It's a reality, though. We must build with weeks, months, and years and generations in front of us who are still to come by how we respond to the things God's called us to even today. In our decision making, they all have ramifications for the future. What we highlight, what we discard, what we get rid of, even in the season. We better make sure that what we get rid of is what God wants us to get rid of, not what we think we don't need anymore. Some of the values that we've been holding dear to are not to get rid of. God has called, they're biblical values that matter, and we need to work together, work hard for the next generation to inherit this. Don't let the present determine the future. Rather, let the future determine the present. What will this look like in the future? What has God called us to? Don't make decisions on the future based on the present. I'm watching, I'm sure you too, guys just making bad decisions because they're not thinking long term. And so it's this thing, this race marked out for us. We need to think of the future. Make present decisions based on God's future for us. That's how we got to operate, I believe. If you're following Christ, remember, every decision is spiritual. We need to inquire of Him, not just go along and do whatever we want to do. So in the future, in our dreams, not just decisions, but dreams. Are you still dreaming about a future? Not of a history, of a future. Build His dream, and His dream will build us. I believe that. And so we will always live in something bigger than what we can come up with. And just to remind us, in all that we've just gone through, don't let the details destroy the dream God's given us. Let the dream keep us dreaming and finding the way forward rather than allowing our details to determine the future that God has. I hope that works. This is a season to walk on water. It's a season to step out and a season to walk in the big things that God has. And so it means we got to think beyond what it is. Dream the dream again, my dear friends.